Welcome to my podcast, TJ Wilk, The Naked Truth, how I went from fashion model to booking 20 movies in 1 year. In this sixth episode, I'm going to talk about opportunities. This is a big one, and one I'm so excited to share about because I've got some incredible examples of big opportunities that I took on that I ultimately mastered. And that's what this is all about. It's just all about recognizing opportunities and knowing how to master them. Recognizing opportunities really starts with really knowing who you are as a person, but also being aware of your surroundings. What's going on around you? Who is around you? Meeting more people. These are opportunities that you can create for yourself. Just being in the right environment, and people will come to you, and you'll introduce yourself and meet interesting people along the way in your life, and opportunities can come out of that. And you got to be able to recognize when an opportunity comes along, especially if you're wanting to be successful in business. And I certainly wanted to be very successful in business when I left college. And that's where my whole life just sort of changed course. And so many incredible things happened just simply because I recognized opportunities and I learned how to master them. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today, because I got a lot of questions about this one. Opportunities. How did I get my opportunities? How did I know when an opportunity came up? What did I do when that opportunity happened? These are questions I've gotten over the years throughout my modeling career, when I was on a television show, and now as an actor, booking all these films. It's been really great to sort of reflect back on how did all of this happen? Where did these opportunities start? What was my approach to these opportunities? And obviously creating my own opportunities. That's the big one right there, is getting to a point where you know yourself so well and you know what you want so much so, and you've got it planned out, and you've got it like a whole strategy that you begin to create your own opportunities. And I believe the opportunities begin to create themselves the moment you begin to put it out there for yourself, laying it all out. That's the opportunity right there. Bring out a piece of paper and writing out and charting down your goals. Very specific goals. I've talked about this in my previous podcast, of writing out your long-term and short-term goals, and then writing out a plan to achieve each one with a timeline that is reasonable. And these are things that are going to help keep you stay on course and continue to be able to create opportunities for yourself, where other opportunities will come in based off of that. So there's just so much to discuss here, but I do want to talk about some of the great examples that I have in my own life that changed the course of my life forever. And opportunities I'm glad I took on that I did not miss. There were many times where I've been invited to certain events and meet different people, and most of the time I said yes. Instinctively, I felt it was something that was an intelligent business decision to say yes to, and I felt comfortable enough to do. And one of the very first things that I decided for myself, that I saw a big opportunity for me to achieve great success in life, was to leave college and pursue the thing that I was really passionate about. That was, for me, an opportunity to really step out of the comfort zone, because opportunities come about too when you are brave enough to step outside your comfort zone, to try something else, to go into a larger, bigger step in something. And you don't know where it's going to end up, but it doesn't matter. The opportunity is there, and it's up to you to master it, to make it work for yourself if it's possible. And I believe so many things in life are very possible if you really want it and you strategize to get it, and you just work really hard to do it. So I think it's just a matter of it being up to you. How bad do you want the thing? And opportunities come out of that. People recognize a passion in you, and they will approach you and talk to you about it, and may say, hey, I've got something for you. And it's up to you to take that opportunity if it's something that you truly want. So my very first opportunity, as an example, was when I recognized how badly I wanted to be a fashion model. I was told by a lot of people in the gym that I worked out at, you have a great face, you've got a great physique, you should get into modeling, you can make money, you might even be famous, who knows? But I was interested in the creative aspect of it, not so much the fame of it, but I wanted to see, could I do it? And my first, I've mentioned this also in other podcasts, the person who inspired me the most with fashion modeling was Mark Wahlberg, when he did the Calvin Klein campaign with Kate Moss. And I just saw those images, how beautiful they were, the physique he had, and it just really inspired me. And I wanted to look like him, and I wanted to see if I could do what he was doing, being on billboards and magazines, modeling for Calvin Klein. So I decided I'm going to really go after this. So what I did was I put together basically going online to see, okay, what are the agencies that could represent me? And what I did first and foremost is I left college. I was in college for 2 years. I had a full ride scholarship, and I left college and I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, where my parents lived. I thought about going to New York. I thought about going to Los Angeles. More than anything, I wanted to move to Los Angeles. But I knew New York was obviously the fashion capital of the world next to Paris at that time, and even Milan, Italy. But I just thought, Atlanta would be a great place to start because it's not as big as New York. It's not as big as LA. My parents are there, so I already know some people there, and it's a safe place for me to begin. And there were agencies down there that had relationships with agents in New York and Los Angeles. And I could gain some experience working in the Atlanta market. And there was a lot to do there at that time. There was catalogs still. This is before iPhones and technology really took over. So we still had newspapers. We still had magazines. We didn't have any social media yet. Not even MySpace was really a thing yet. That's dating me a bit. But nonetheless, these are things that didn't exist. So everything was very basic, and so we still were shooting with film. There was no real digital photography yet. Everything was still on film. What I did was I saw an opportunity for myself to gain some knowledge and learn about this business and who in Atlanta was accessible to me. So I went online. I went on Google. We had Google, and I just basically wrote, in the tagline there, the top 5 agencies in Atlanta, Georgia. And there were 5 that came up. And one of the first that I recognized was Elite Models, because that was a big agency in New York. I was aware of the big agencies in New York because I did research online to see what was existing in New York and Los Angeles. I watched a lot of E! Television in those days, and E! and MTV were great television networks to sort of get a taste of what the celebrity life was like and what famous people were doing, what models were doing, what actors were doing, musicians. It was just a very exciting time to kind of get into the lives of these people because there was no other way to get into them. There was no, like I said, there was no social media where you had famous people that had their own pages and their own sort of network, if you will, to talk and communicate daily with everyday people like myself. So TV was like our access into their lifestyle, and I was fascinated by it. It just really excited me. And, I just really enjoyed sort of the lifestyle that they had and how much fun they were having and how great it seemed to work in that business. So what I did was I really just sort of buckled down and decided, okay, I'm no longer just going to wish this. I'm going to really try and manifest this to happen in my life. And it starts with a plan. So what I did was I went online, like I said, looked up these 5 agencies. I called all 5 of them. And the only one that took my phone call that had me come in to meet with them in person was Elite Models. And they were a big agency in New York, very, very big. They represented a lot of famous people, a lot of supermodels, especially women, and they had a really good, strong men's division. But I was really pleased that they had an agency in Atlanta. So they took my phone call and had me come in, and they said, just bring some of your best pictures that you have so we can see how you look on camera. So I basically just had these, Polaroid images of myself, and they weren't great, but at least they were something. And the agent that I met with, his name was Rodney Harris. He ended up being my very first agent. Elite decided to take me on. But I had a whole list of questions that I wanted to ask Rodney or whoever I was going to meet with in that agency. Like, how long has this agency been in business? How long have they been in Atlanta? How long have they worked at this agency? Were there any models at this agency that looked like me? If they did have somebody that looked like me, could I see examples of that so I could just really see what they're doing? Were there clothing companies that you had in mind that I could be right for? What kind of model do you see me being for this company? Do you have any advice for me on taking a great picture? And they gave me examples. They said what you need to do is go through magazines and pick out something that you really strikes you that you'd want to do and just try and copy that basically. And then obviously I asked about photographers. What photographers should I shoot with? Because I didn't know any photographers. I didn't know anything about that. And luckily they have a list of photographers that work with them that shoot what they call new models or new faces. And they take a chance on you And you have to pay for it though. So I think I paid like $300 or $400 for these pictures, and you get like 3 or 4 different looks. It takes about 4.5 hours to do the whole thing ultimately. And I asked to see examples of of what these photographers have done, and based on those images, I decided which photographer would be best for me. So that's basically what I did. So I really came there with a logical business plan of questions and ideas that I had. And it really worked out nice because he was very impressed. Rodney, I was at the forefront of his mind for anything and everything that came through the agency from that point on, because he saw I had such a passion for the business that I wanted to be successful. I wasn't just some pretty boy coming through the office that, didn't know anything and had no interest in knowing stuff. I was someone that didn't know a lot, but I wanted to learn everything. And I was just so excited to be a part of this, finally, this thing, right? Once I left college. I shot with this photographer. I got very basic images, but they were good enough for me to be submitted for stuff. And the very first job I ever got was in a newspaper, a local newspaper that ended up publishing on a Sunday morning, for a department store called Rich's Department Store in Atlanta. And I was very excited because it's the first time I've ever been published in anything, and I got paid for it. It was like a couple $100. It wasn't much, but it didn't matter. It was just the fact that I achieved something that I really went after. I saw an opportunity and I attacked that opportunity. I came in with a business plan, ideas and questions to ask, and I felt like, okay, this is the right way to go about stuff. I didn't really have any mentors. I didn't really know anything. I just instinctively felt like if I really want to do this, I really need to logically chart this out, because this is really the only way I'm going to keep myself accountable, and I'm going to remember all of the things that I want to know. And that's why I write a lot of stuff down, especially when I have questions for people that I want to work with. I write down every question that I want to ask them so that I leave with an answer to every question that I want to know before I get there. Sometimes if I go to a meeting and I don't have all my questions written out, I'm going to forget these questions. And then I'm going to regret that I didn't write it down because I have 5 or 6 questions I forgot to ask that were really important to me. So I always write everything down. And I encourage you guys to do the same thing whenever you have any interviews, opportunities. Always write it down. It's such a smart way to do it. And the person you're going to speak to is going to have a different level of respect for you because you came in very prepared in a way they may not have expected someone to come in prepared with. And it just sets an interesting sort of standard of professionalism, I think, when you come in with a written strategy of things. So yeah, I just started working things locally. The next job I got was a wedding catalog, which was hilarious because I was in my early 20s. And then I went on to do some runway stuff. And that was my very first experience. I got to walk the runway for Diesel Jeans. That was the very first thing I did for runway. And that was exciting because it was live in front of all these people. And I had no runway experience. I didn't know how to walk down the runway. I was not taught what to do. Thank goodness I wasn't the first model out there. What I did was I watched from behind the curtains there how the models are walking. And there was no rehearsal before. We just were to show up at a specific time, throw on the jeans, and walk down to the music, pause at the end of the runway, and then walk back. But I really kind of very quickly studied how the male models were walking down the runway. And I'm like, okay, so that's how you do it. And I did my best to do what they did, and the audience responded positively, so I felt like I did a good job. And I really enjoyed that experience. That was something that I did not expect to ever do, was runway. I just wanted to be, a model in photographs like what I saw Mark Wahlberg do with Kate Moss. I had no idea I was going to walk the runway. So a great opportunity for me to perform live in front of people in that creative space of modeling came about because I was brave enough to create the opportunity to even get this meeting with elite models in Atlanta. So what happened next was, the next opportunity was the agent called me and said, hey, Rodney called me. He said, hey, TJ, we've got an opportunity for you to go to Milan, Italy for 6 weeks for their fashion week. You go there for a number of weeks to meet with all these designers, the best designers in the world. You're going to meet with every single one of them, and they're going to decide whether you're right or not right for their runway shows, for their fashion week. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. He said, yes, and we want you to come in and meet this agency that's interested in meeting with you before you go out there. And they're going to decide whether or not you'd be right for their agency to invest to have you go out there. And they'll pay for everything. They'll pay for your flights. They'll put you up in a nice place where models stay. They call it a model apartment. and then they'll make sure that you have your whole schedule every single day of where you're supposed to go and who you're supposed to meet with. So I was like, okay, great. So I go to the agency, I meet this agent, Christian Jacques is his name, and he owned his own agency, and they decided to take a chance on me. And so I went to Milan for 6 weeks, and that was a very interesting, exciting, but also very disappointing trip. And I'm glad I took the opportunity, even though it didn't work out, because I would have never known otherwise. But what was exciting about it was I got to meet with all the great designers, Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, Dolce & Gabbana, Versace, Prada, gosh, I mean, all of them, Gucci, so many of these and some companies that don't even exist anymore. Structure, which is a big underwear company for men, they had a very, very famous men's runway show that they did for a long time in the 90s and early 2000s, and they eventually went out of business. But I got to walk the runway for them to rehearse to maybe get chosen for it. So I met with all these designers. I must have met with like 50 of them, literally. Most of them Italian, some of them American, but most of them were Italian, and not a single person chose me. It was very disappointing in that regard. I did not get one single job there because I was too big. I was bigger than the bouncers even that would work at the nightclubs. But I was not as big as I am now. That's what's funny is Italians, the way that they design their clothes is they're for tall people that have wide waists but have skinny arms and skinny legs. And that was not me. I was like an hourglass. I had a big chest, big back. My arms were big. My legs were pretty muscular, but I had a really small waist. So the pants never fit right. They were always very loose. And when you're walking the runway, it's all about the clothes. It's really not about the model, but they want the model to look good in the clothes so that they can walk the runway wearing those clothes and really show those clothes off really nice. And even though I had a decent runway walk, the clothes, the way they were styled and the way they fit my body, it just didn't fit their market. So in that regard, it was really disappointing. But I did get to meet all these crazy designers and get that experience of walking the runway, wearing those clothes, even though they didn't fit well, during the casting process. And it was nerve-wracking. Every single time it was nerve-wracking. But by the time I got to my 50th, casting, I wasn't nearly as nervous as I was, say, the very first time I did it. I sort of had some experience. And every single time I went, it was an opportunity. And that's the way I saw it. As an exciting opportunity. I'm in this crazy new city that I've never been to in my life. I've never been at that time, out of the United States for anything. So that was my very first experience being outside of the United States, was in Milan. And it's such a beautiful city, completely different type of place to live. The culture there is very different. The history of the buildings, everything, the construction of the buildings, the architecture is very different than anything we have here in the United States. So in that regard, it was all very exciting, and I'm glad I took that opportunity, even though it ultimately didn't work out for me as a model. But I came back with so much knowledge about a different culture in a different part of the world, and how things are actually done at the highest level when it comes to the runway world of things, how they really do it. And I'm really glad I got that experience, even though it was a bust. But I didn't see it that way. I actually saw it as a major success, a major win, because the agency did say yes to me when they said no to other models that were in Atlanta that were trying to get out there. So I felt like that was a big win for me. So then the next big opportunity that I took was I met a guy that was in Atlanta that was a TV executive producer for Turner. He was in charge of working for one of the networks for Turner, and they owned a lot of networks, TV networks. And he sat me down. I met him through a friend of mine, and he sat me down at lunch and he said, listen, what kind of model do you want to be? Because if you want to be a fashion model, New York's going to be the place you're going to need to live and really, really do it. If you want to be an underwear and fitness model, because a lot of my photos that I had were more underwear fitness based. That's what my book was, really. I had some photos, of me wearing suits, but it was really more about my body because I was more in tune with my body. And like I said, I wanted to be like Mark Wahlberg in the Calvin Klein underwear campaign. That's what I was really after. So he said, look, you need to go to LA. If this is what you want to be, a body guy, an underwear guy, bathing suits. LA's the place. And he goes, and honestly, that's my market because I travel a lot back and forth to LA. I've spent many years there working. I've got a lot of contacts there that are legitimate contacts that you could learn something from. They'll spend time with you because you're a friend of mine, so they'll take you seriously and we'll meet with you if that's something that you want to do. And I said, absolutely. This was for me the opportunity to leave Atlanta and go to the bigger market where I wanted to go to anyways when I was in college, like I said, watching e-television. That was an opportunity for me to go to that actual city where all that exciting stuff was taking place. So I said, absolutely. Took me a little bit to save some money because I needed to make sure I had enough money to last me for a few months to live off of. Again, it's putting together a business plan. It's not just making an emotional decision and just going off of that, which sometimes that works out. But as a business person, you really want to chart out a solid plan that makes sense logically. Otherwise, you're going to probably end up on your face, and so many people do that. In my acting class, I took so many actors that came from these cities, Detroit, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, wherever. They just on a whim decided to move to California and get into this acting class. And then not even a month later, they're gone. They move back home because they can't afford to live here. They had no plan. I just figured out where to go, where to live. My friend that gave me the advice told me where I should be living. He said what kind of job I should get, which at the time was to be a waiter. And I did that for about 8 or 9 months. I was a waiter. And I absolutely hated being a waiter, but it was the best job for what I was trying to get into because of the time, the hours that worked. It just worked around my schedule with my acting class because he told me where to study acting. I really had a good mentor here when I came here. And that was something that came about because of my choice to succeed as a model in Atlanta, Georgia, and meeting a friend that introduced me to this guy. It was all opportunities that I decided to take. And I took the opportunity to meet with this guy for lunch. I took the opportunity to really take in what he said and put together a business plan to get to Los Angeles. And once I got there, he said he would then introduce me to people. And so I did everything he told me to do. So he saw, he was testing me basically. So he saw that I took everything he said seriously and I did everything he told me to do. And that's when he started to introduce me to people in the business. And he, saw my work ethic. So it was something that he could say to these people, TJ's got a good work ethic. You should meet with him. He's very passionate. He's a good looking guy. He's a hard worker. You really should meet with him and get to know him. And that's what happened. And I started meeting some really successful people in the business, and they gave me opportunities. And one of the biggest opportunities that I ever got was being invited to a dinner. And I met a manager, a very successful manager, through my mentor. And the manager invited me to a dinner, a big round table dinner. And the person sitting next to me at this dinner was a very famous photographer that I learned at that dinner was a very famous photographer. He was taking pictures of Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. He just finished jobs with both of them at this time, and he was talking about it very openly at this table. And I'm just sitting there like, wow, this is incredible. I wonder if he'll take pictures of me, even though I'm a nobody. And I just asked him, I took the opportunity to ask him, do you by chance do headshots? And this guy, I talked about this in another podcast, but he gets paid like $100,000 a day to do what he does, taking pictures of celebrities, putting them on the covers of magazines, and promoting the work that they're doing. $100,000 a day, and here I am, just moved here, maybe a month and a half in, and asking him if he'll take my headshots and shoot my pictures. And the whole table erupted in laughter, including Tony, and I even laughed because I'm like, great, yeah, I just made a complete ass out of myself. And he said, you know what? That's a very adorable question, TJ. No, I don't do headshots, but I will take yours. Come to my house tomorrow. And the whole table stopped laughing, and their jaws dropped like, are you kidding me? Tony Duran is the name of the photographer. Tony Duran is going to take your picture. Your life's going to change overnight, TJ. Get ready. And I'm like, okay. And so the next day, I literally went to Tony's house, and it used to belong to Jennifer Lopez. He bought it from Jennifer because Jennifer ultimately made him famous. The very famous picture of her turning towards camera, covering her breasts, wearing this very short pink, fluffy skirt thing that was really short. It was on the cover. She was on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine, and that's the picture that made Tony Duran famous. So he ended up taking my pictures, and I had the best pictures I've ever seen in my life, and I only worked with him for like 5 minutes. It literally only took him 5 minutes, what took other photographers hours to do, and they never even got close to the beautiful images that Tony took of me. Nowhere close, because the guy he had a natural talent and just a genius about knowing angles and lighting and understanding that. It's amazing just how some people are just so genius with what they do. In literally 5 minutes, I got the best pictures I ever had in my life. And that opportunity came about because I was not afraid to ask what I considered to be a very intelligent question. Many people saw it as silly, which is why they laughed. But once Tony responded with, yeah, let's do it, everybody stopped laughing. So it turned out to be a very important, life-altering question that turned out to be in my favor. So I share that with you to just let you know that opportunities come about when you ask questions. No matter how silly or stupid or retarded you may think they are, ask the question, because you never know where it's going to lead. And this question of me asking that, who knows if I would have ever saw Tony again? Probably not, if I didn't ask that question. We were just there at this dinner. And yeah, I mean, I really believe that I probably would not have met Tony if I didn't ask that question again. But I asked the question, he made my career begin, and before I knew it, because of him, he made a contact to the best agent in Los Angeles for men, this woman named Rosie. She turned out to be my agent, and she booked me for all of my big campaigns that I did throughout my entire modeling career. I got to work in New York. I didn't have to live in New York like so many models do. I could live here in LA and travel to New York. They would pay my expenses, and I would do big campaigns there and fly back. My pictures would be in billboards in Times Square. I'd have pictures on, Sunset Boulevard on their billboards. Magazines all over the world, covers of magazines. I'd have inside stories about myself. It was just really something how that opportunity came about. And it just really just goes back to asking a simple question and seeing an opportunity to do it. And then the next big thing that happened was when I went to the gym, I met a guy there who introduced himself to me. And it really is because I always was working out and taking care of my body. My biceps were pumped. I was doing arms that day. And this guy comes up to me and he says, dude, what do you do for your arms? Your arms are huge. I want to have biceps like that. What do you do? And I was literally in the middle of my routine. And I could have said, oh, I just do bicep curls, with dumbbells and just leave it at that, right? But I said, you know what? I saw an opportunity here. I didn't know who he was, but I saw an opportunity to maybe make a friend here because I'm new in LA. And I said, why don't you work out with me? I'll show you what I do, because I'm hitting arms right now, which is why they're pumped. And he goes, okay, yeah. So we start working out together, and we're hitting biceps, and he's learning new stuff, and he's getting a good pump and a burn that he's never felt before in his biceps, just me showing him things that I do for myself. And at the end of our workout, he disclosed that he's a dentist, and he was going to be starring on a new show, on a reality show called Extreme Makeover. It ended up being Dr. Bill Dorfman. And he became one of my best friends, like a brother to me, and another mentor, because he's such a smart businessman. And just the fact that my biceps and my arms caught his attention enough to want to approach me, that was a great opportunity for me to introduce myself to him and work with somebody that I didn't know and become friends with. And it was because of Bill that I became a nanny.
All the other models that are my age are out partying with their buddies, but I'm a nanny to 3 beautiful girls, Georgie, Charlie, and Anna. And they are a handful sometimes, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. Bill Dorfman is the father of the 3 girls I nanny, but you might know him as Dennis to the Stars. And one day, he came up to me and asked me if I knew any girls that would be a nanny to his girls. And I thought, I love kids, and I grew up in a pretty big family. Why don't I do the job? I tried my best to avoid all the traffic.
No traffic.
I know, because I avoided it, you see. Along with me working as a nanny, I also work as a model. And once I drop the girls off at school, my day's just beginning.
Okay, give me pencil. In deep thought, good. What's on with Giselle?
PJ, can I give you an extreme makeover? It wasn't a question. Turn around.
because I just simply love kids. And just the fact that I am able to have a positive influence on these girls, they're going to grow into beautiful, awesome women.
And that would never have come about if I didn't actually speak to Bill and give him this workout in the gym. I'm just sharing with you just things that can happen based on opportunities that come up in life and just being open to them. I got invited to the Neverland Ranch through another friend of mine that, thought it would be a fun opportunity because he knew I was like a kid. I'm like a child in a grown man's body. So he thought it would be fun for me to go, and I would be like a fun guest to go with. And sure enough, it ended up being one of the best, most fun experiences I ever had going to the Neverland Ranch. They were celebrating Michael Jackson's dad's 75th birthday. So at that particular party and event, it was all outdoors on the Neverland Ranch, and all the rides were open. Michael was there, the whole family was there, and I got to meet Jermaine Jackson. I met their father, Joe. I met LaToya. I did not meet Michael or Janet. They were, I guess, in the house somewhere, but the whole family was supposed to perform for their dad, and I guess they got into some huge family feud, I guess, and they never ended up performing, which is really funny. But some of the people that I met there, Denzel Washington, I mean, every major actor and R&B singer, rapper was there. It was awesome. It was so awesome. I got to ride that big boat that swings back and forth with Exhibit. He sat next to me and got like very sick and like rested his head on my shoulders. He was like, dude, I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's all good. And I'm like, this is Exhibit, like resting his head on my shoulder. Crazy. I got to ride this ride that would spin around and go up and down like this while it spins. It's called like the Spider Ride or something like that. And I got to ride that with the entire group of Wu-Tang Clan. And, just like, this is like, where else are you going to have an opportunity to do stuff like this? At that time, Wu-Tang Clan was like the group. And, man, just so many famous people there. It was great. And everybody was so nice and fun. And because I decided to go to this thing, this was a big opportunity. I took the opportunity to go. Not only did I experience all of that, but I also ended up meeting someone that's a very dear friend of mine that is a huge executive producer for all the Transformers movies, all the X-Men, most of the X-Men movies, a guy named Tom DeSanto. And he, to this day, is one of my dear friends and someone that I look up to and I hope to one day work with, get to his level and work with. But, you don't meet really great people unless you're open to opportunities to meet them. And it comes about at the strangest thing. I met Tom in line at when we were getting barbecue. Food at the Neverland Ranch at this party. That's how I met him. And he's wearing this like Superman t-shirt, and I thought everybody else was dressed like really nice. And Tom was wearing jeans and a Superman t-shirt. I'm like, this dude, I like this guy already. He's in my world. He's a kid. I like it. And it turned out that he was a big executive producer, made the first 2 X-Men movies at the time, was getting ready to make the very first Transformers movie. I actually got to have breakfast with him the morning that he met with Steven Spielberg. He took me to breakfast before he had that meeting with Spielberg for the very first Transformers movie. Spielberg ended up not doing it because Tom wanted to stay true to the actual comic book story of it for the very first one. Spielberg had bigger ideas, so it wasn't a perfect match yet for them to work together. But the mere fact that I got to have lunch and see how nervous he was to meet with Spielberg, it was great. And he's someone who was already major successful as a producer, and to just have that moment with him before he had that meeting is just something that is so surreal to me even to look back on now. And that's an opportunity that I took when he invited me to breakfast that morning before the meeting. I said, yes, I would like that opportunity to have breakfast with him and just sort of spend more time with somebody like him and just, get to know him more. And it was great. And just so many different stories like that over my life that I've experienced. Some very famous people I got to work with, like Tom Cruise. I got to teach him one-on-one work on a trampoline, and that came about because of Tony Duran, that photographer that hired me, to take my pictures. Just so many incredible things. I got to work with Elizabeth Taylor on a runway show project for Macy's called Macy's Passport. It's a big fundraiser for AIDS, and she's a big advocate of AIDS when she was alive. And I got to spend time with Elizabeth there, and she was like the main speaker, but we had like a one-on-one moment hours before the show. I was leaving my makeup chair to go into wardrobe, and all I had on was like my boxers and my socks. That's it. I was just doing my makeup, and wardrobe was like the next room down the hall. Elizabeth Taylor sitting in her wheelchair with these 2 big bodyguards next to her. And she looks at me up and down, and she says to me, I didn't even say hello to her yet, but we locked eyes, and I smiled at her, and she looks at me up and down, and she goes, well, now, aren't you just a handsome young man? And I said to her, I said, thank you so much. I took her hand instinctively. I kissed her hand, and I said, thank you, Miss Taylor. You literally just made my life. And she smiled up at me with these big eyes, and she's just all happy. And then I went over to the makeup, to the wardrobe area, and I'm like, holy shit, I literally just had a conversation with Elizabeth Taylor, and I kissed her hand, and she complimented me. Wow, this is my life. This is insane. And Elizabeth Taylor was my dad's, like, one of his favorite actresses. So that was just a surreal moment. And all of these opportunities came about because I decided to take an opportunity to leave college and enter a business that I had such a great interest and passion for, and just figure it out along the way and take these opportunities along the way and master them. How do you master an opportunity? How do you recognize an opportunity? An opportunity is recognized when you feel it, when it's something deep inside you that excites you. Sometimes it scares you. You know, you just really think about things logically, even though it's an exciting opportunity, and figure out if it's something that you really want to do. And then so many opportunities, if you choose to do it, one way or the other, things are going to happen, but you've got to figure it out for yourself. And mastering an opportunity, that comes when you feel comfortable enough in your own skin and in your own abilities based on your current experience, or just feeling it so much so that you're not afraid to try it and go for it. That's how you master opportunities, is being brave and being ready for them. And I mean, that's really what it's all about. And all these examples that I've shared with you, I hope have inspired you. It in a way inspires me to continue going even more, because I just can't believe it's my own life and my own things that I've experienced. I even wrote out a list of famous people that I've met over the years, and it is a long list. And it's not just meeting them, but actually having one-on-one conversation with them, having a dinner or a lunch with them, sharing a moment at a very private, exclusive event for very powerful people in the industry that I got to, like, a great example is Christian Bale. I had an incredible conversation with Christian Bale when he just finished shooting The Machinist, and he was getting ready to shoot the first Batman. He started putting muscle back on his body, and I knew he lost a bunch of weight for The Machinist. He obviously won an Academy Award for that role, but he was getting ready to go back into his normal body and put on even more muscle to play Batman. And that wasn't even disclosed yet to the public. And I'm there at the bar with him at this event that was basically a merger of two talent agencies coming together as one. And that's what this event was all about. My friend Bill Dorfman, the dentist, was invited to that event because his agent was one of those agents that was merging with this company into one company. So he invited me to go because he thought this would be a great event for me to meet people. And, you know, he was so supportive of my career as a model and so badly wanted me to be successful. And that's the kind of people you want in your life, are people that want to see you succeed. And Bill, for me, was one of those people. So he invited me to that event, and I had this great conversation with Christian. And I met some other great people. I met Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner when they were together. Leo DiCaprio was there again. You know, it's the second time I saw him. The first time was at the Playboy Mansion, and the second time was at this event. And it was just great. And there's so many other successful people at that event. But, you know, these don't come about unless I'm open to opportunities. And whatever industry you're in, wherever you want to go, I would just say to you, be open to the opportunities. Be ready for your opportunities by just being comfortable in your own skin, accepting who you are, being proud of even the littlest wins, the littlest things in life, being proud of those achievements. That's going to just be so helpful and really just self-nurturing towards your own self-confidence, so that when you have opportunities, you're going to come into those opportunities more excited and more prepared, because you have this confidence and bravery in yourself that someone's going to recognize and give you a chance. So I hope what I said makes perfect sense and inspires you to keep going with what you're doing. And I really hope that you guys going forward, if you haven't already, make sure you're charting out what your goals are and what you want to achieve. And if an opportunity comes about, write out the opportunity, write out the pros and cons, and then you can logically really think about, is this the opportunity that I want to follow through with, or is it something I want to pass on and maybe hold out for something else that might be better? You know, you're ultimately in control of your decisions, and even your opportunities. You're in control of those. They're going to come and go as they do in life, sporadically, at any given moment, but you're ultimately in control of your life. You have the power to make those choices for yourself. So just encouraging you guys all to just keep going, keep moving forward. Be excited about the opportunities that come in your life, whether they're right for you or they're not. The fact that you were blessed with being introduced to something different is, I think, a wonderful thing in life. And just keep going forward. I'm rooting for you all. And please stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you for tuning in.